Have you ever sat alone at night? Just you, the silence, and a question lingering in your mind. Is what I'm doing still okay for a man my age? You don't say it out loud. Maybe you never have. But when you're over 60, when life slows down and the house gets quieter, some questions grow louder. Masturbation. It's practiced in silence. It's rarely discussed. And yet, for millions of older men, it's part of life. But is it harmless helpful or quietly harmful? The answer isn't a simple yes or no, because it's not just about the act itself. It's about how, why, and when you do it. It's about your body, your emotions, and your connection to others, or your disconnection. In this video, we're going to explore 10 smart rules for masturbation after 60, not to shame or preach, but to guide gently and clearly. You'll hear real stories, real science, and the wisdom your doctor probably never had time to share. So, grab a cup of tea, sit back, and let's begin just two men talking honestly. Rule 1. Don't let it replace real connection. Let me tell you a quiet story. George, 67, lost his wife 3 years ago. They had been together for over 40 years. Now the house is quiet. Too quiet. He still cooks for two, still sets the table that way, but most nights it's just him, and the television, and the long, empty hours. At some point, George turned to self-pleasure. Not out of lust, not even out of habit, but out of loneliness. And at first it brought some comfort, a way to feel alive, to feel something. But over time it became routine, mechanical, and strangely, he felt even lonelier. You see, masturbation can be a part of a healthy life, but it was never meant to replace human connection. It's like drinking water when you're hungry. It fills a space, but doesn't nourish. Many older men fall into this trap. They say, "At least I'm not bothering anyone. I'm not doing anything wrong." But silently they drift away from friendship, from conversation, from even the idea of romance. A recent study found that men who rely exclusively on solo sexual release often report higher levels of depression, poorer sleep, and more social withdrawal. That doesn't mean masturbation is bad. It just means ask yourself, am I doing this out of joy or out of avoidance? Here's the small but powerful truth. Pleasure without connection can leave you emptier than before. So, what can you do? If you're living alone, start small. Call an old friend. Share a laugh with a neighbor. Or even just sit outside where you can hear other voices. Because your body may crave release, but your heart still needs closeness. Now that we've talked about connection, let's go a bit deeper into something most men never think about. How the way you sit or lie when you masturbate can silently affect your nerves and long-term pelvic health. You won't believe how many issues come down to posture. Rule 2. Choose the right position. Now here's something most men never even think about: posture. Yes, the way you sit or lie down when masturbating can actually affect your nerves, blood flow, and long-term comfort. It sounds minor, until one day you notice a numbness you've never felt before, or a tingling sensation that doesn't go away, or maybe even a dull ache in your pelvic area that creeps in slowly and lingers quietly. Let me introduce you to Sam. Sam is 64, a retired office worker. He's a creature of habit, and that includes the old leather chair in his bedroom corner. Every evening, same position, hunched forward, elbows on knees, sitting on that hard chair for 20-30 minutes at a time. He never thought twice about it, until one morning he realized something felt off. Not pain exactly, but a strange dullness. And over the next few weeks, it got worse until he couldn't ignore it anymore. His doctor told him he had pudendal nerve compression, a condition that can affect sensation bladder function, even sexual performance. And the cause? Poor posture. Repeated pressure in the wrong spot, every single night. So, here's what most men don't know. When you're sitting on a hard surface, especially if you're leaning forward. You may be putting pressure directly on nerves and blood vessels that serve your pelvic region. And over time, that pressure can lead to inflammation, numbness, or even long-term nerve damage. It's the silent cost of something we think is harmless. But there's good news. It's easily avoided. If you choose to engage in self-pleasure, do it lying down or reclining comfortably. Use a supportive cushion. Keep your spine relaxed. Avoid any position that cuts off circulation or causes you to tense your lower back. Because this isn't just about comfort, it's about protecting your sensitivity, your sexual function, and your nervous system as you age. So, here's the simple takeaway. The position you choose today can affect how you feel tomorrow. Be kind to your body. It's been carrying you for a long time. Now, speaking of being kind to your body, there's one more habit that many men ignore, until irritation, soreness, or even infections show up. And it all comes down to one very simple thing: using the right kind of lubrication. Let's talk about it in Rule 3. Always use lubrication. Rule 3. Always use lubrication. Let's talk about something simple but surprisingly overlooked. Lubrication. It might seem like a small detail, but for older men, especially over 60, it can be the difference between comfort and irritation, between a moment of release and a lingering problem you didn't expect. As we age, the skin becomes thinner, more sensitive, and natural lubrication, especially if you're not sexually active with a partner, tends to decrease. What used to feel smooth and friction-free in your 30s may now feel uncomfortable or even painful. Let me share James's story. He's 71. Healthy, independent, still drives himself to the farmer's market every Saturday, but a few months ago he started feeling a stinging sensation after masturbating. He thought it was a hygiene issue, so he washed more, used stronger soap, but it only got worse. Redness, sensitivity, even a tiny crack in the skin. Turns out he had developed micro tears from dry stimulation. No lubrication, too much friction, and skin that no longer had the elasticity it once did. The fix. So simple. A gentle, water-based lubricant. Not lotion, not spit, and definitely not soap, which can dry out the skin even more and cause inflammation. He started using a natural aloe-based lube, and within 2 weeks, the irritation disappeared. And so did the anxiety that had started creeping in every time he touched himself. Here's what most men don't realize. Without lubrication, every stroke creates tiny, invisible trauma to your skin. You may not feel it immediately, but over time it adds up, leading to sensitivity, inflammation, and even increased risk of infection. So here's your simple but powerful takeaway. If you care about your skin, your comfort, and your long-term pleasure, use lubrication every time. Think of it like oiling a machine. You wouldn't run your car engine dry. Why do that to your body? Now, while we're on the topic of repetition and routine, there's another hidden trap many men fall into. Doing things the exact same way every single time. Same hand, same rhythm, same speed. It feels safe, but over time it can actually train your brain in the wrong direction. Let's explore that together in rule number 4. Don't do it the same way every time. Rule 4. Don't do it the same way every time. There's something comforting about routine. We wake up, we make our coffee the same way, sit in the same chair, maybe even walk the same route every morning. And when it comes to self-pleasure, most men do the same. Same hand, same rhythm, same timing, same everything. But here's the quiet problem with that. When you stimulate yourself the same way over and over again, your brain starts to link arousal to that exact pattern. That same pressure, that same grip, that same speed. And slowly, without even realizing it, your brain becomes conditioned. Conditioned to only respond to that specific touch, which means when you find yourself with a partner, things might not work the same. Let me tell you about Tarek. He's 68, newly remarried after a decade of being single. He was thrilled to have a partner again, someone to hold, to laugh with, to share intimacy. But when the moment came, something unexpected happened. He couldn't feel aroused. No erection, no sensation, not like he was used to. He was confused, ashamed even. But the issue wasn't him, it was his routine. For years, he had trained his body to only respond to his own touch, his own pace. Now, with someone else, his system didn't know how to adjust. After talking to a therapist and making some changes, Tarek learned to vary things up. Slower some days, different pressure, even switching hands or positions. He also took breaks, giving his nervous system time to resensitize. And slowly, things began to come back. So here's what we can learn from him. Your body isn't a machine, it adapts to what you teach it. And if you always teach it one exact method, you may find it forgets how to respond to anything else. That's why variety matters. Not to make things more exciting, but to keep your brain and body flexible. To help you stay responsive not just in private, but when you're with someone you care about. So next time, change something. Change your grip. Change your breathing. Change the pace. Treat it like a conversation, not a transaction. Because the more present and varied you are, the more connected you'll stay to your pleasure and to your potential for intimacy. And speaking of listening to your body, let's move into something even more subtle, but just as important, Rule 5. Pay attention to your body's signals. Because sometimes pain or discomfort isn't random, it's your body trying to whisper something important. Your body is always speaking to you. The question is, are you listening? Sometimes the signs are loud, sharp pain, sudden discomfort, difficulty, urinating. But more often they start as whispers, a slight ache in the lower back, a bit of heaviness in the testicles, or that subtle nagging pressure in your pelvis that you try to ignore. Let me tell you about Youssef. He's 72, a calm, quiet man who never liked complaining. For months he had been feeling a dull ache after his nightly routine. It wasn't sharp, and it didn't stop him from sleeping, so he brushed it off. Until one day, he noticed it was taking longer to urinate. The stream wasn't as strong, and there was a persistent tightness he couldn't quite explain. When he finally saw a doctor, the diagnosis was clear: pelvic congestion, a condition caused by fluid buildup and overuse of the pelvic muscles without proper circulation or rest. He had been stimulating too frequently, not moving much during the day, and ignoring his body's quiet cries for balance. Here's the thing. Your body is wise. When something feels off, it's rarely random. It might be inflammation. It might be fatigue. It might be your nervous system asking for a pause. And ignoring those signals doesn't make you stronger. It just delays healing. So, here's your reminder. If something feels uncomfortable, unusual, or different, pause, reflect, adjust. Your body isn't betraying you, it's guiding you. Maybe you need more rest. Maybe you need more movement. Or maybe you need to take a break from stimulation and give your system time to reset. Because long-term pleasure isn't about pushing through, it's about working with your body, not against it. Now, while we're on the subject of deeper awareness, let's talk about something that's less physical but just as powerful: your emotions. Because for many men, masturbation becomes more than a habit, it becomes a way to escape. In Rule 6, don't use it to escape your emotions, we'll look at the hidden cost of emotional avoidance and how to build a healthier, more balanced inner life. Let's be honest, sometimes what we call pleasure isn't really about pleasure at all. Sometimes it's just numbing. A quiet way to turn down the volume on what we're really feeling. Loneliness, stress, boredom, grief, the weight of time. You see, as men, we're often taught to stay strong, to keep moving, to not talk too much about what hurts. So we find other ways to release the pressure. And for many, masturbation becomes that quiet outlet, a private way to feel something, even if just for a moment. But what happens when that moment becomes the only way we deal with what's going on inside? Let me tell you about Hassan. He's 66, retired early, his kids live abroad, his days were long and repetitive meals TV bed, and without even noticing, he began using self-pleasure as a kind of routine escape, once in the evening, sometimes again at night. Not because he wanted to, but because he didn't know what else to do. But over time, he noticed something. He wasn't sleeping better. He wasn't feeling lighter. In fact, he felt more drained, more disconnected. What he needed wasn't more release. He needed connection, emotion, movement, meaning. So, with some guidance, he made small changes. He started journaling before bed, took walks in the morning even just around the block. He made time for a weekly phone call with his sister just to talk, and slowly that emotional fog began to lift. He didn't give up masturbation, but now he did it with intention, not out of loneliness, but out of presence. Here's the truth. Pleasure should come from wholeness, not from running away. When you use it to escape your emotions, you don't feel lighter. You just delay the healing. So, ask yourself, what am I really feeling today? Do I need comfort? Or do I just need company? A walk, a laugh, a prayer. Because when you care for your emotions, your body follows. Now, as we explore how to listen better to our emotions, let's shift to a surprising benefit of masturbation that many men overlook completely. Rule 7. Use it as a tool for self-check and early detection, because sometimes your own hands can discover what your doctor might miss. We often think of self-pleasure as something purely physical, something done in private, and then forgotten. But what if I told you it could actually save your life? You see, when you engage in any form of self-touch, you have a unique opportunity to notice, to feel, to detect changes in your own body that no one else would ever spot. And for men over 60, that's not just important, it's essential. Let me tell you about Omar. He's 70 lives alone, still walks to the bakery every morning. One evening during his usual routine, he noticed a small lump on his testicle. It didn't hurt, it wasn't large, just different, something that hadn't been there before. He almost ignored it, but something inside him said, better check. A few days later, after seeing his doctor, he was diagnosed with early-stage testicular cancer. It was caught so early that treatment was simple and non-invasive. The doctor said, "You saved your own life by paying attention." And this isn't rare. Many men have found early signs of testicular lumps, penile plaques or curvature, skin changes or discoloration, or even early prostate-related tension or swelling during moments of self-touch. Because when you're familiar with your body, you can tell when something doesn't feel right. It's not about fear. It's about awareness. It's about being your own first line of defense. So, next time you're alone, take a breath. Be gentle. Be slow. Be curious. Notice the texture of your skin, the symmetry, the temperature. Not from a place of anxiety, but from care. Because here's the quiet truth. The more connected you are to your body, the earlier you can protect it. And at your age, awareness is one of your greatest strengths. Now, while we're talking about taking care of the body, let's move to something that affects your overall comfort and sexual health more than most men realize. Rule 8. Reduce your reliance on unrealistic stimulation. Because what you feed your brain visually shapes what your body expects and how it performs. Let's talk honestly for a moment. We live in a world where stimulation is everywhere. A few taps on a screen and you have access to scenes, sounds, and bodies that are, well, not exactly realistic. They're exaggerated, polished, designed to grab attention and keep you watching. And over time, those images begin to shape something deeper, your expectations, not just of others, but of yourself. Let me tell you about Rami. He's 65, still active, still sharp, but in recent years he found himself spending more and more time watching explicit content online, not hours a day, but just enough to become his default source of excitement. And at first it was fun, but something changed. When he finally found someone new, a warm, kind woman from his community, he was excited to reconnect. But in private, nothing felt right. He couldn't focus, couldn't perform. His mind kept comparing her body to the bodies he'd seen on screen. And that's when it hit him. He wasn't aroused by her. He was chasing a script that was never meant to be real. Here's what's happening on a neurological level. When you watch highly stimulating, fast-paced content, your brain releases a surge of dopamine, and just like any powerful reward, your brain starts to expect that level of intensity. But in real life, things are slower, softer, more human, and if you've conditioned yourself to need extreme stimulation, the natural, the gentle, the honest can feel almost invisible. But there's a way back. Start by taking breaks from digital content. Don't go cold turkey, just notice how often you reach for it. Instead, try using your imagination. Recall a loving memory, a real touch, a familiar scent. These aren't just more personal, they're more powerful in the long run because your mind is still capable of deep, real arousal. It just needs to be reminded. So here's your quiet insight. The more you return to what's real, the more you reconnect with what matters. Presence, emotion, eye contact, warmth. And speaking of presence, there's another mistake many men make, especially in the age of freedom and retirement. They forget that frequency matters. Too little can cause stagnation, but too much that can cause its own kind of trouble. Let's explore that delicate balance in Rule 9. Find the right frequency for your body. When it comes to self-pleasure, there's a question almost every man asks himself at some point. How often is too often? It's a quiet curiosity, one you probably won't ask your doctor or even your closest friend, but deep down you wonder if what you're doing is normal or too much. And the answer? It depends on your body, your energy, your age, and your intention. Let's look at two very different stories. Adele is 61. Active, still working part-time, walks every day. He masturbates around 2 or 3 times per week, usually at night. He says it helps him sleep, keeps him relaxed, and never leaves him feeling drained. For him, that rhythm works beautifully. Now meet Kareem. He's 68, retired, spends a lot of time at home, and out of habit found himself masturbating twice a day. Not because he felt strong desire, but because the time was there and the urge was automatic. At first, it seemed harmless, but over the months, he noticed subtle fatigue, pelvic tension, even a sense of emotional dullness, like he wasn't quite present in his own life anymore. When he cut back to every other day, something shifted. More energy, more focus, more balance. You see, just like food or rest, too little stimulation can lead to stagnation, especially for prostate and circulation health. But too much can overstimulate the nervous system, drain your energy, and even cause discomfort in the lower abdomen or testicles. So, how do you find your balance? Here's a general starting point. In your 60s, 1-3 times per week tends to support both health and vitality. In your 70s, even once a week can be enough to maintain function and comfort. But more important than numbers, listen to your body. Ask yourself after each session, do I feel relaxed or exhausted? Clear or foggy? Comforted or numb? Because frequency isn't about keeping score, it's about feeling rested, restored, and connected. Here's the lesson. There's no perfect number, but there is a rhythm that's right for you. And once you find it, everything feels more natural and more sustainable. And now we've come to the final piece in this gentle conversation. A reminder that in everything we've discussed, technique, frequency, intention, there's one golden thread that ties it all together: awareness. So, in our final rule, let's bring it all home with Rule 10. Practice with awareness, not just habit. Let's pause for a moment, take a breath, and come back to a question that matters more than how often, or even why. Are you fully there when you touch yourself, or just going through the motions? You see, the difference between habit and awareness is subtle but powerful. Habit is automatic. It's reaching for something because you're bored or restless, or it's just what you always do before bed. But awareness. Awareness is presence. It's choosing the moment, not escaping into it. It's noticing how you feel, what you need, and how your body responds. Let me tell you about Elias. He's 73, widowed, strong in spirit but quiet in nature. He told me I used to see it as a guilty secret, something to get over with quickly. It was part of a nightly routine done in silence, almost as a way to forget the day. But one evening something shifted. He decided to slow down, to light a candle, to sit comfortably. He didn't reach for his phone or the usual video. Instead, he just listened to his breath, let his hands move gently. No rush, no shame, no goal. And afterward, he said, "For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt peaceful." That's the quiet gift of awareness. It turns a routine into a ritual. It turns release into restoration. It brings dignity back to something that was never meant to feel hidden or hollow. So here's your final rule, perhaps the most important of all. Touch yourself with kindness, not judgment, with presence, not distraction, with care, not just habit. Because how you touch yourself says a lot about how you treat yourself. And you, my friend, deserve to be treated with respect. Now that we've walked through these 10 gentle, honest, and practical rules, it's time to bring everything together with a few final reflections that may just change the way you see yourself and your body forever. Let's wrap this journey up together. So, here we are. 10 simple rules. But if you've made it this far, you know they weren't really about rules. They were about something deeper. They were about awareness, about dignity, about returning to your body with curiosity, not shame, and with care, not guilt. If there's one thing I hope you take from this entire video, it's this. Your relationship with your own body doesn't end with age. It evolves. Just because the world goes quiet, just because the bedroom is emptier, doesn't mean your needs vanish. They simply ask to be met with more tenderness, more thoughtfulness, and more grace. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not doing something wrong. You're simply human, still learning, still changing, still worthy of touch, of pleasure, of presence. So let this be your reminder to pause, to listen, to make room for both release and reflection, to treat yourself not as a machine but as a man, a full, beautiful, living man. And if this video gave you even one moment of comfort, clarity, or connection, I ask you don't keep it to yourself. Share in the comments. What rule resonated with you most? What habit might you shift starting tonight? Click like to let the platform know that men's health deserves more space, more honesty, and more dignity. Subscribe if you want more conversations like this, calm, respectful, grounded in science and soul. And if you know someone, your brother, your friend, your father, who might quietly need this, send it. You never know whose silence you might be softening. Thank you truly for spending this time with me. Stay kind to yourself. Stay present. And until next time, take care of your body. It's the only one you've got.